The Laundering, Case 01, the Regina Circuit, a colonial paramilitary apparatus that commissions its own approval rating. Open the case.
For at least 15 years, the Regina Police Service has presented a recurring community perception survey to its Civilian Oversight Board as evidence of public consent. The survey is designed by professors at the University of Regina, polled by a single Winnipeg contractor, and reported up to City Council. Every component of that circuit sits inside the same procurement, funding, and reputation network. In many cases, inside the same square kilometre of West Regina.
Frame, not corruption, a functioning legitimacy layer. Start at the founding.
The Royal Canadian Mounted Police was founded in 1873 as the Northwest Mounted Police, a paramilitary force modelled on the Royal Irish Constabulary, Britain's colonial occupation police in Ireland. Parliament's Enabling Act of May 23, 1873, created a 300-strong mounted force whose stated purpose was to assert Crown sovereignty over the recently transferred Northwest Territories, suppress the American whiskey trade, and prepare the ground for the numbered treaties.
And the contemporary continuation.
Parks Canada's own commemoration concedes that the Northwest Mounted Police established posts across the region without the consultation or permission of First Nations. The force was used militarily against the Métis at Batoche in 1885. The University of Saskatchewan's Gladue Rights Research Database describes the force plainly as an arm of colonial control for politicians and lawmakers in Ottawa, and for Indigenous communities in the Northwest, an additional source of repression. The contemporary RCMP is the institutional continuation of that force, not its successor. Depot Division, the only place every Mountie in Canada is trained, has operated continuously from the same site in West Regina since 1885. F Division headquarters is co-located. They are the operational anchor of Canada's federal paramilitary force, and they sit roughly 7 kilometres from the campus where this story's other half is generated.
And the architecture this case names.
This piece is not about a scandal. There isn't one. It is about a routine institutional architecture that produces a legitimacy artifact, a survey, on a 2-year cycle, presents it to a civilian board, and uses it to settle the question of public consent for another 2 years. Every part of that machine functions exactly as designed. That is the problem worth describing.
Geography, 5 institutions, 1 square kilometre. The architecture isn't theoretical. You can walk it. The architecture is geographically compressed. Each of the 5 anchor institutions in this case is in Regina. 3 of them share a campus. 2 of them share a building. From Depot Division on the west side to the Regina Police Service headquarters downtown is roughly 7 kilometres. From the University of Regina to the Saskatchewan Police College is across the same parking lot. The case is, in this sense, walkable. That is what makes it useful as the original case. The architecture is dense enough to see the seams. Anchors. The 5 institutions, in their own words, walk it.
5 institutions anchor the circuit. First, the RCMP Academy, Depot Division, in West Regina. The only RCMP cadet training facility in Canada, every member of Canada's federal paramilitary force is trained here, on a site in continuous operation since 1885. Second, F Division headquarters, co-located with Depot. The RCMP's Saskatchewan Command and the funder of First Nations policing research that comes out under the Collaborative Centre for Justice and Safety's imprint at the University of Regina.
Third,
The University of Regina's Department of Criminology, formerly the Department of Justice Studies, until the 1st of May, 2026. It hosts the Law Foundation of Saskatchewan Chair in Police Studies and the Bachelor of Arts in Police Studies, a degree the university describes as developed in partnership with the Saskatchewan Police Commission, the Saskatchewan Association of Chiefs of Police, and the Saskatchewan Federation of Police Officers, with an advisory board including members from all three. The rename to criminology took effect 12 days before this piece was written.
Fourth and fifth.
Fourth, the Saskatchewan Police College, located on the University of Regina campus. It provides police recruit training that grants academic credit toward the university's police studies degree. There is no daylight between the police college and the university. Fifth, the Regina Police Service, downtown. The municipal force whose legitimacy the perception surveys measure. It commissions the survey, presents it to the Board of Police Commissioners every 2 years, and uses the resulting trust and confidence figures to defend operational decisions to City Council.
And the binding institution.
The Collaborative Centre for Justice and Safety, the institutional imprint under which every survey report has been published. It also governs the Canadian Institute for Public Safety Research and Treatment, which received $30 million in federal funding in 2018 to research first responder mental health. The centre's revenue model is structurally dependent on the same agency category whose legitimacy its survey work helps produce.
Cycles. 15 years, 8 cycles, 1 pattern.
The Regina Police Service has presented this survey to the Board of Police Commissioners as a bi-annual instrument since at least 2011. Regina Police Communications describe the current 2025 cycle as the 8th iteration, anchoring improvement claims back to earlier City of Regina surveys conducted between 2005 and 2009. Every cycle since 2013 has been designed by the same Department of Justice Studies faculty cluster. Every cycle since at least 2011 has been polled by the same Winnipeg contractor, Prairie Research Associates.
And the constants.
Through 8 cycles, the contractor has never changed. The lead designer has never changed. The framing has rotated only once, when the 2021 decline was externalized to George Floyd and the COVID pandemic rather than to any methodological or operational factor.
Designers, where the methodologists came from.
3 of the 4 named designers across these cycles entered their academic role directly from a career inside the corrections or policing apparatus. The 4th is the through line, present on every cycle since 2013.
Walk the 4.
Dr. Rick Ruddle designed the surveys from 2011 to 2021, 7 cycles. He held a named endowed chair in police studies, and his career ran entirely through Canadian corrections and policing before that appointment. Dr. Nicholas Jones is the institutional through line. He appears on every cycle from 2011 to 2025 and co-authored RCMP First Nations policing reports with Ruddle. Dr. Adam Vaughan joined for the 2023 and 2025 cycles and was the November 2023 candidate presentation for Ruddle's Police Studies chair, meaning he was auditioning for the chair while co-designing that cycle's survey. Dr. Leslie Ann Keown joined for the 2025 cycle. Federal Government Directory records list her as Research Manager at Correctional Service Canada as of June 2017, the 3rd of 4 designers to enter the academic role from inside the carceral apparatus.
Self-admission. The department has conceded this critique on the page. In 2014, the University of Regina Department of Justice Studies published a reflective piece on itself in the annual review
of interdisciplinary justice research. The article describes the institutional position in both directions. Quote, "Detractors view such a close relationship with government as compromising our independence. Supporters see the advantage of a positive relationship with government because criticism is more likely to be accepted if there is mutual respect." End quote.
And how the department resolved it.
What is unusual about this passage is not that the critique exists, it is that the department itself articulated it in print and chose to file it under the supporter's view, as if the structural objection had been weighed and rooted. The survey cycles continued unchanged after 2014.
Methodology, an instrument that undercounted the over-policed.
In 2016, CBC News reported that the 2015 Regina Police Survey systematically underrepresented Indigenous respondents. The same finding recurred every cycle. CTV News reported that the 2023 cycle was the first time data collection was amended to better represent visible minorities. This is not a peripheral methodological footnote. Indigenous and crime victim respondents have rated the Regina Police Service lower across every survey cycle since at least 2011. The methodology that undersampled them for over a decade produced a corresponding decade of rising trust headlines for the institution.
And the 2021 decline.
In a province with the highest per capita Indigenous incarceration rate in Canada, this is not a small effect. The 2021 cycle showed a measurable decline for the first time in 15 years. The lead designer told CBC the drops weren't concerning because, quote, "We saw it across virtually every police service in the country. Causation externalized to George Floyd protests and the pandemic. The data were absorbed. The instrument continued."
And what the survey doesn't measure.
A note on what the survey does not measure: use of force incidents per capita, tactical unit deployments, carding and street check data by ethnicity, outcomes of disciplinary complaints, Indigenous deaths in custody. It measures what residents say on the phone when called by Prairie Research Associates between 7 and 9 in the evening in September. That is a meaningful thing to measure. It is not a measure of policing. The structural function of the circuit is this: the university provides the layer that lets the state describe what it does to over-policed populations as evidence-based rather than political.
Reputation laundering. Placement, layering, integration. Name the prior literature first.
The structure of what these 8 survey cycles do has an established name in investigative literature: reputation laundering. The term entered serious press usage around the London School of Economics and Saif al-Islam Gaddafi PhD scandal of 2008 to 2011, in which donations of roughly £1.5 million followed a credentialed degree, and the school's director resigned after the Arab Spring exposed the underlying arrangement. Catherine Belton's book, Putin's People, documented the same pattern at state oligarch scale through British universities and law firms. Sarah Chase treats reputation laundering as a structural political mechanism, not a metaphor. The United States Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations uses the explicit frame in its 2020 report on foreign gifts to American universities.
Map the 3 stages.
Placement. The Regina Police Service has an institutional concern: public trust, contested or declining, especially among Indigenous residents. It cannot publish its own approval rating. The reputational asset is unusable at the point of origin. The concern is placed with University of Regina Justice Studies, who can. Layering. Methodology design by named chair faculty a third-party polling contractor, a peer review adjacent institutional imprint, occasional academic citation in policing journals. Each layer further obscures the commissioning relationship. By the time the survey reaches the Board of Police Commissioners, the question, "Who paid for this?" is structurally awkward to ask.
And integration.
The findings enter the public record as University of Regina research. City Council, media, the board, and the next survey cycle all cite it as independent data. The reputational asset is now clean and circulating. 2 years later, the cycle repeats. This is not a metaphor. It is a structural description of what the 8 cycles do, what they have done since 2011, and what is about to happen again in 2027.
The circuit. 3 loops, 1 departmental address. The architecture is best understood as 3 overlapping loops, each running through the same building. Loop 1 is the perception survey loop. The Regina Police Service commissions, University of Regina Faculty Design, the Winnipeg Contractor polls, and the Civilian Board ratifies. Loop 2 is recruitment and curriculum. Saskatchewan's policing bodies sit on the advisory board of the Police Studies degree. The Police College sits on campus, and RCMP cadets train at depot. Loop 3 is militarization research. Federal funding flows to the Public Safety Research Consortium, supporting an evidence-based policing framework used to defend tactical expansion. And the indictment.
None of these loops is corrupt. Each works exactly as designed. All 3 converge on the same departmental address.
Literature. The critique is not new. It is well established and ignored.
The decolonial criminology literature has named the structural problem for at least 2 decades. Bico Agostino's Counter-Colonial Criminology, published in 2003, argues that criminology emerged in the 19th century as part of the colonial project, with race science used to legitimize indigenous dispossession. The discipline cannot be separated from its origin. Harry Blagg and Thalia Anthony's Decolonizing Criminology from 2019 is the current standard reference for the field, with extensive treatment of Canadian and Australian settler colonial policing. J.M. Moore argues that criminology, as taught, accepts the state and its criminal justice institutions as natural and benign, the structural property that makes university criminology useful as legitimacy production.
And the Canadian-specific work.
Kevin Walby and Brendan Rosier have produced a decade of freedom of information-based research documenting the rise of Canadian tactical unit deployments. Their central finding: underreporting of use of force legitimizes police militarization by providing the state with evidence to justify expansion. And Indigenous and Métis scholarship, Robin Maynard's Policing Black Lives, Vicky Chartrand's work on Indigenous incarceration, Elizabeth Comac's Racialized Policing, has documented the same structure from the inside.
Close. What this piece is and isn't.
This is not an accusation of fraud. Every individual named in this piece is a credentialed scholar. Their published work is real, and parts of it are serious. The argument is structural, not personal. A department whose flagship undergraduate degree is co-governed by the policing bodies of the province cannot also serve as the independent methodologist of those bodies' public trust survey. A research centre whose revenue model depends on RCMP and federal policing contracts cannot also serve as the neutral evaluator of those agencies' legitimacy. A survey contractor that has held the same sole source relationship for 15 years is not an independent variable. and the architecture's effect. None of this requires anyone to be acting in bad faith. It is what the architecture produces when it runs. The Regina case is unusual only in that the architecture is geographically compressed enough to walk between the components in an afternoon. The same circuit, more diffuse, runs through every major Canadian city.
Two true statements.
The Crown's 1873 paramilitary force still trains its officers in Regina. The university, 5 kilometers south, still tells the city that the public approves. Both statements are true. Their relationship is the story.